Hey there, my friend. Karen here, and I am so happy to be back with you for another powerful interview episode of the Cheeky Podcast. The topic today that we're going to be involved in, it falls under what I lovingly call unconventional treatment. So it's the unconventional realm of managing Crohn's and colitis. But I've got to say, I wish it was more mainstream. And I guarantee that you're going to feel the same way after listening in. Even though I think it's especially hard for us moms with IBD to delve into this mind body side of healing. I think it's that way because of so many things, because we don't have time, because we put our kids first, because we're already managing so many other healing modalities. And so there's many, many solid reasons why we don't put it at the top of our list. So to us IBD moms, mind body work, it's just another item on our to-do list. And it's an item that we never get to. We want to get to it, but it just doesn't happen. And having ignored this crucial pillar of healing and on my healing journey, I know I've talked about this before on other podcast episodes, having ignored that for way too long, having gone through the consequences of my inaction, I make it my mission because I know how powerful it is. I make it my mission to shout it from the rooftops. Every promising unconventional IBD healing modality that I hear about, I have to shout it from the rooftops. And I have to say that right now, at this point in my life, I don't think there's a non-traditional healing avenue that I'm more passionate about than somatic healing. And I can't think of anyone better to walk us through the ins and the outs of this healing technique than Jill Howell. Jill is an emotional regulation coach and a somatic healing practitioner. Having had her own experiences with chronic health issues, she even has had some gut challenges she's going to tell us about. She's personally triumphed over PTSD, chronic pain, anxiety, and she now dedicates her life to helping women transform their relationship with themselves through her somatic practice. In today's episode, I ask Jill to tell us all about her own transformative journey from facing her own stacked up traumas to discovering the profound benefits of a somatic practice. And even though her story, it may be different than yours, you might be thinking, that's really different than mine. I think you're going to resonate with it. And maybe you're going to actually even see some of those similarities between her story and your story. And Jill and I, we also explore the types of techniques that she uses with her clients. And she talks about how these methods are able to empower you to reconnect with your body, to regulate your emotions, and then ultimately find peace. Amidst the chaos and the craziness that is our life, find peace. Wouldn't that be amazing? Can I get an amen for that? We all want that, right? Now, I do have to say, before we dive in, I do have to say that Jill and I, we pretty much just dive in and we start talking about somatic coaching. So before we get there, in case this is a new treatment modality for you, I just want to highlight what a somatic practice entails, kind of at a high level. So at a high level, it's an approach to healing. It focuses on a mind-body connection. It helps anyone that's dealing with anything chronic. So any chronic conditions, it could be a physical chronic condition or a mental health chronic condition. But when you're dealing with a chronic condition, and it really helps you in that state become more aware of your bodily sensations, your emotions, your responses to stress. And there isn't just one method that's used by all somatic practitioners. It's more like there's a variety of treatment tools, like things like gentle movement and breath work and EFT and EMDR, inner child work, among other techniques as well. I'm just naming a few. And these types of techniques, they help to release stored trauma or tension that you might have in your body. So if you're curious about how somatic practices can help you reclaim your health, then I got to say, this is the episode for you, my friend. Okay, I think that's all I need to mention before we dive in. I think I have the table perfectly set for this conversation. Go ahead and grab a cup of tea and let's hear this conversation with Jill Howell. Jill, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to talk with you today.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so I want to dig into emotional regulation, somatic coaching, nervous system dysregulation. I know all of that is part of what you do. And I really want to get to the heart of how all of that relates to digestive disorders, because that's what my community is dealing with. And I have to tell you that lately I have gotten so into this topic. Like, I would say I'm obsessed because it's not something that was part of my journey or my practice a while back. But I found that somatic coaching has been so powerful for me that I had to start sharing it. I was sharing it with my clients and they're seeing amazing results. And I know when that happens, it's time to bring it to the podcast. So that's why I'm talking with you today. And I would really like to start, like, we're going to dive into all of it, but I want to start with your journey because I know that it's your journey that actually brought you to somatic coaching. So can we start there? Let's start with what happened in your life to lead you to this line of work that you're in?
Oh, girl, we could be here all day talking about, I've had a lot of stacked trauma. Honestly, I would say there have been 2 seasons of my life distinctively where I would call them kind of dark nights of the soul,
Yeah.
meaning I was really stuck in a lot of anxiety and depression, and I had a lot of chronic symptoms. So the first time that was happening was back in like 2010, 2011. That is actually when I first started noticing a lot of my digestive issues. Okay. So that was when I was going through just a really difficult first marriage that I was in. And I was contemplating leaving. And it was really, really toxic to me to stay. But it was also very scary to leave because I had a daughter and I was not working full time. So it was just a really scary place. So my body, I feel like at that season of time, held a lot of my distress in my stomach. So I really didn't even know about somatics at that point. I was still doing traditional talk therapy. And I continued all the way through my 20s and my 30s. So for about 2 decades, that was the basic thing that I tried to help heal me and help me move through anxiety and depression differently. And it still wasn't enough because then another trauma stacked on top of it. And in about 2020 is when my nervous system, I feel like, collapsed even more. At that time, interestingly, I wasn't having digestive issues as much. However, I was still having some of the symptoms of, like, back when that first season happened, I ended up going gluten-free, dairy-free, doing all of these things to help with inflammation and just digestive issues. And that was still kind of there, but it wasn't like, interestingly, it started moving to my shoulders. My neck and my shoulder pain was debilitating. And
Wow.
that was my catalyst for saying, talk therapy is not enough for my sensitive nervous system. The amount of trauma I've had from childhood through adulthood and the ways that it was stacking and the ways that one in particular in 2019, 2020 is around when a lot of my childhood trauma was reactivated. Basically,
Gotcha.
those wounds of the past had come back up in a really big way. A lot of these same emotions that I had felt as a child, I was feeling based on circumstances that were happening. And what really made me look into something different was the fact that I spent thousands of dollars trying to help get rid of, and I say get rid of intentionally, get rid of my neck pain that I was having. It was debilitating on days. I did physical therapy. I did chiropractors. I did acupuncture. I did cupping. I did massage therapy. I tried everything to help alleviate and get rid of the pain, and it wouldn't leave.
Wow.
It was like just this constant ache that even if I did something, it would alleviate it just temporarily for a short term, moment, but it never like got rid of it. And so finally I went to a doctor and they diagnosed me with PTSD. And
Really?
he
A
was like,
medical doctor or a
mhm, yeah,
psychologist? A
no,
medical
medical doctor.
doctor.
And she was
Wow.
like, tell me what's going, because she asked me more questions. She was a little more holistic. And she was like, what's going on in your life? And then she diagnosed me with PTSD. And she said, you're holding a lot of emotional pain. Your body's holding it. And at that point, she didn't tell me what to do to help it, but she created the awareness for
Yeah,
me. And I was like, okay, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
that's right.
So I was like, I'm done with traditional talk therapy. I'm opening the door full and wide to any other healing modalities to see what I can do to help myself feel more at peace inside of my body. And I discovered nervous system regulation, and specifically for me, somatics, meaning anything that's body based, recognizing my body would not come back into a state of ease and at peace because it was holding so much alarm. I couldn't think my way to peace. I could try. I did go to a mindset coach who was, she had a little bit of somatic background, and she opened up the door to EFT tapping for me.
Mm-hmm.
That was my starting point
Okay.
of exploring somatics and an integration of mind and body healing, and in going at something from an approach of like really honoring the body too. That's where I
Hmm.
started. And then I
Yeah.
just kept pursuing, and I kept the snowball rolling, and I just kept looking and kept seeking and kept trying things and exploring. And I realized the more that I actually did gentle movements, the more that I allowed myself to connect to my body and honor the alarm that my body was holding with anxiety and with depression, the more I learned to communicate with the emotional parts of me. I'm certified actually in somatic parts work, which
Oh,
means,
that's interesting. What is
yeah,
that?
yeah. So it's really an inner child healing
Okay.
modality. But it's recognizing the fact that we have no bad parts within us. We have a part of us that feels anxious, a part of us that feels sad, a part of us that's, experiencing the world. It's not the totality of who we are. And then what I've started recognizing is that there are parts of me from age 6 to 8 that when I'm triggered by something that's happened in an emotional way, that emotional connection to back when I was 6 to 7, 8 years old is activated. And that's actually, it's more often than not the actual thing that's happening in the present moment. It's the triggered of the emotional connection of how I felt as a kid.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
communicate now with that part of me. And I do that from a body level. So when I'm working with my clients, what I'm doing is I'm actually helping them find sensations in their body. And what we do is we connect to the sensations that are there. And then we ask the body, how long has it been holding this energy, this emotion? And the body always answers and responds. I haven't
The
met
body
somebody.
knows.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
body knows. I haven't met somebody who can't answer that question. Once I truly get them grounded and in a space of connection to their body and to the
Yeah.
sensations,
Yeah.
that once they ask the body, and I'm like, don't think about it. I just want you to ask that part of your body. If you're holding it in your chest, ask your chest, how long have you been holding this? And the
The body
answers are,
knows. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
body
Yeah. Yeah.
knows.
I'm hearing all of these words that I know that people who are listening can relate to, like the fact that you were talking about digestive problems in relation to a trauma that you were having. And I like that you call that first marriage and all that went on there trauma, because oftentimes we think of trauma as somebody who went to war or
Mhm.
somebody that has endured an assault of some kind. But there are, I guess, I don't know if you would call them microscopic traumas or, small traumas that are happening to us throughout our lives. And so I'm hearing that. I'm hearing anxiety, depression. These are all things that people who are listening can relate to. So you started to touch on it a little bit about some of the things that you do in a session with somebody, but let's actually talk about that, because I bet there are people listening that are like, what is she talking about? What is this somatic coaching?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I wanted to hear about your journey to start, but let's just take it back a little bit and tell us, how is what you do different than traditional coaching? What is somatic coaching, and how is it different from just a traditional coaching or even traditional therapy? That's another thing that I really honed in on, that you were talking about, how talk therapy isn't for everybody.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the thing for you. And I think for a lot of people I work with, it's not the thing for them either. So
Mhm.
what, like, just on a global scale, what is this that you do? What kind of things are you doing in a session? What is it?
Yeah. So one of the biggest differences that I've noticed in what I'm doing versus a lot of talk therapists. So I would say I've been through several, because I would always try to find the right one that's going to have the magic bullet to fix
Yes.
me,
Yes.
to heal me.
Yeah.
But it's more of a cognitive processing. That's what takes place in a traditional talk therapy. The strategies are not bad. I want to make that very clear. And they are helpful and they can be useful. But for me, it was always like short term. And sometimes, honestly, the talking kept me like what I felt like, because I like to use this imagery of dancing in the mess. I feel like I just like vomited the mess onto the table. And then
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
I was sitting there in my vomit. And by the end of the session, it was like 60 minutes or it's done, time to go. And I'm like, wait, this still smells and it's really icky. And I don't know what to do with
Right.
it.
And they're like, okay, 15 minutes are up. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Right?
And
Yeah.
so, and all I did was spin my wheels in my head. And so it just created more like chaos for me at times. Sometimes I would leave feeling more distraught than when I started.
Right. Right.
What makes it different for me is I never allow a client to leave more distraught. It's my commitment. And part of how I do that is because I'm always bookending everything that I do with this really compassionate response to whatever comes up. And we go to the body first. So what it looks like is, my clients might tell me something that's gone on, or give me a high level view of the wins and the struggles of the week. If they're a repeat client, they inform me of that stuff. But then we move to the body. And I genuinely I'm taking my clients through a guided, you could even call it meditative experience, to slow down, to connect with their breath, to come back to a place where they feel safe and connected to themselves and to me, feel resourced and regulated, so that we can move and be more aware of what's happening in the body. Until we take that sacred pause, we're just all up in the head. So
Yeah.
I'm like, let's drop into the body. Let's feel the sensations. Where are we feeling things? Where are we holding it today? And I let the body lead through a lot of
Hmm.
my sessions. I don't come in with a master plan. I come in open handed, ready to intuitively respond and gently guide my clients to whatever comes up.
I
So,
love that. See how different it is from talk therapy? I have
yeah,
so many people where I know that therapy would be something that would be valuable for them. In fact, that's my background. My master's is in counseling.
yeah.
That's actually, but I never learned somatic therapy. Never. It
Mhm.
wasn't part of my curriculum at all. It was a 3-year curriculum, nothing. But so often people will say to me, I've tried it. I went to 5 therapists. I went to 10 therapists. It was never helpful for me. And I think people, especially with digestive disorders, or probably any type of chronic physical, where there's a big physical component to what you're feeling,
Mhm.
this would be really valuable for them.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me, what are some of the, besides digestive issues, maybe, there's people listening that may have other issues as well. What are some of the major challenges that you see could be benefited from finding a somatic coach or a therapist?
Anyone who is having any sort of chronic symptoms repeatedly in their
Oh,
body.
I love that. Okay.
So, any chronic illness, autoimmune disorders, fibromyalgia, chronic pain, digestive issues, sleep issues, any chronic experiences. I actually like to call anxiety and depression symptoms as well. Those are just chronic symptoms that are just showing up in the body. It's the body's way of alarming you and getting your attention. I feel like the body is a smoke detector. It's
Okay.
always trying to get your attention, and it will get when it really needs your attention, it will do it through chronic symptoms of some kind.
Yeah, that's so true, isn't it? So
Mhm.
I love that. So anything chronic that's going on, that can be helped with this type of
I
therapy.
believe it's a
And
piece of it for sure, right?
and you
I mean,
probably see people with multiple issues, right?
I
They're
do.
not typically coming with one thing.
Yes. Usually by the time they finally have gotten to a place where they open themselves up to the work that I do, they have chronic things that have stacked.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Why
Unfortunately,
is that? Why did there's so many things you have to go through before you will seek help. And I work specifically with moms, and we're notorious for this because everything comes first before us.
exactly. That's exactly it. There's that element of it, I believe, is key because I work mostly with women too, a
Okay.
lot of moms. And I also believe that part of it is um, just the lack of emotional intelligence in the generations prior,
Oh,
meaning
interesting. Yeah.
they didn't really have the skills to move through emotions. They didn't know how to. It wasn't talked about. There's, most of anybody in their 30s, 40s or higher were not really parented in a way that allowed for emotional expression. And so if somebody is not able to express themselves, the body holds it for them.
Mhm.
And that's
Mhm.
where we come out, with chronic symptoms. The body is just really holding too much for too long of a period of time, and it doesn't know what to do with it. And it
Yeah.
needs our help. We have to learn how to become the guide of our bodies to really, I empower women to coach themselves back
Mhm.
to peace.
Well, let's actually get into that because I know that you talk about these different words as a pathway to healing, and I
Mhm.
want to actually say them because I love these words. Okay, so
Okay.
the words that I want to say are rewire,
Mhm.
regulate, release, reconnect, and reclaim.
Mm.
So, how walk us through the steps. Explain specifically how do we walk this journey of these they're just words right now, right? How do we make them an
Mhm.
experience? But especially for digestive disorders, how do we walk this journey of going through that process to find healing on the other side?
I think it starts with really opening ourselves. And I had this visual in my head as I'm just thinking about how to respond to this, and it's open hands. This is the vision that I had in my hand, like in my head as you were talking. It's like it starts with opening our hands to exploration, to really coming into the body with new approaches that feel uncomfortable at first. Everything we do feels uncomfortable and unfamiliar to the nervous system. And when I say nervous system, we're just talking body and brain interconnectively, the communication highway between the body and the brain. Um, and so for me, a lot of this journey of those 5 words that you just spoke are all kind of interconnected. And sometimes the journey looks different for each person. But I do believe the thing that is similar that is needed for I would vouch all people because we live so protected and we live so uptight and stressed, like in a lot of our culture is operating from that stance. And I believe that to rewire the brain and the body and the nervous system, we have to reconnect with ourselves. We have to help guide the body and the brain to reconnect again, because trauma meaning anything that has happened that has been either too much or not enough for somebody, can actually, you know, impede that journey and cause us to not be able to have this brain and body connection. We disassociate, we disconnect. We really are, struggling to be present even with ourselves, let alone other people.
Right.
So,
Right. And
so
it just gets worse and worse with every
yes,
generation, you
yes,
know? Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, for sure.
So for me, the I like to teach clients how to hold space for pain and pleasure in tandem.
In tandem.
In
Okay.
tandem, I believe that we need both. This is what I needed. I needed to connect with myself in a really loving, compassionate way. And for me, even as I'm talking, I'm putting my hands on my heart because that's what it means. This is home for me.
Mhm.
My home base after all of the trauma and after so much nervous system dysregulation that I was stuck in. And when I say that I was stuck in those two time frames of life and there were dark times, I mean, I wanted to die.
Yeah.
And I
That
don't
bad.
mean that to be dramatic, but it's genuine. I was like, I'd even pray, God, if you could strike me dead, I'd be grateful. I'm not scared of a tornado. Bring it. I'm not scared because I want to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was very real for me. And so for me now, like even as I'm talking, it's like I put my hand back on my heart and my body. And I'm like, this is my home base now. And so my journey of this like helping women to rewire and reclaim and restore and release what's stuck in the body is all about coming back home to ourselves with love and compassion. So
Yes.
much gentleness, so much tenderness, really learning skills. It's skills based to know how to respond to ourselves when we experience emotions, giving ourselves that ability to have, the space to process and use our words and not just repress everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you do this, and for those who can't see what I'm doing, when you're putting your hand to your heart there and you're talking about
Mhm.
coming home, it
Mhm.
makes me feel, and the way that I'm hearing it from you is that you have this in you. It's
Yeah.
there, and
And it
it's
wasn't.
a
It wasn't for the first 40 years of my life.
gotcha. So, no, what I mean, like, do you feel like it's inside people? It's about tapping into it? Or are you saying it's not there? We have to figure out how to bring it, how to bring this place of home to our heart? Or do you think we all have it in us, but somehow through all of these little chinks and micro traumas that happen, we lose the connection with it?
I think
What do
it's
you
always
think?
there. I think it's
Okay,
there. And
got you.
and when I'm helping my clients move through this transformation journey, it's all about getting them into a flow state. The parts of us that hold the flow state are our younger versions of us.
Of course they are. That makes
Right?
complete sense.
Right?
Talk about flow when you're young and innocent and you don't know about all kinds of world problems. That flow. I love that word that you use. Flow.
Mhm.
It's a flow.
It is a flow. And so I'm all about helping women to access that with tangible skills because if you tell a woman, okay, go into a flow state, okay, access a flow, okay, act like a kid, we'll look at you like with deer in the headlights, like, okay, crazy
Yeah.
lady. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know
And
what
it
you're
does
talking
sound good. I have to tell you, it
about.
sounds
Good.
good. But you're like, well, how do I do? What do I do? Now what?
Yeah.
That's great. But what do I do to get there? So I guess that's where the skills that you're teaching, that's where you're tapping into the actual
Yeah.
skill set of it, the learning part of all of this.
Yeah.
Just a quick interruption. We will get back to the podcast in a second. I'm wondering, are you like many of us with Crohn's and colitis? You're turning to food to help heal your gut, but you're just feeling really overwhelmed by the myriad of gut healing diets out there. There's gluten-free and dairy-free and paleo gaps, and it can be really confusing and frustrating and leave you feeling disheartened about which diet is the right one for you. And I've been there myself. That's why I created the Ultimate IBD Diet Decoder Quiz to help you find your best diet for your unique needs. Now, maybe you've tried one of these diets, but you gave up quickly because they were just too strict. or they didn't fit with your lifestyle. Here's the truth. There is no one size fits all diet, but there is one best diet for you. And the best diet for you isn't just about your symptoms. It's about your lifestyle and your personality too. Are you ready to find the gut healing diet that fits you like a glove? Head on over to KarenHaley.com/quiz to take my ultimate IBD diet decoder quiz. It's free and it only takes 3 minutes. Discover what you've been meant to be eating to put your IBD in its place. That's KarenHaley.com/quiz. And now back to the show.
I believe that this is what I needed. And I believe that there are women who need the integrative healing approach. So for me, everything I do is integrating multimodalities. I don't believe one modality is the one size fits all for everybody. I'm intertwining meditation, breath work, NLP and cognitive processing strategies, EFT tapping, which I'm a certified practitioner in, the somatic parts work. I'm creating experiences that are hands-on that allow for somebody to embody. And so I would say I'm an embodiment coach too, really. I'm an embodiment somatic healing coach that really allows for the body to receive the information. Because with the brain, we can try to mantra our way to thinking a certain way, but if the body is working against us because it's holding a protective alarm of, no, that doesn't feel good, that doesn't feel safe, like that's literally what my body was saying. No, this is too much. And I really felt like it was saying it didn't feel safe in the world ever.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
ever in my 40 years of living.
When you have a chronic issue, I think it's really common to feel that way because you're so often feeling deflated, defeated, disheartened, hopeless. It just takes up so much space. It becomes part of your psyche. It becomes part of who you are.
Yeah, your subconscious programming is what I like to call it.
Right. And so I guess it's about reprogramming that.
It is. That's exactly what I do is I help women move through their subconscious blocks and help to reprogram their brain and their body for peace, for ease, for joy, for confidence, for all of the things that they're lacking. The void. We're really going into these spaces where the void is within us, where it's held, and it's always held on a body level. And we're allowing the body to begin to feel safe enough to let it go, to soften. But the goal and the objective is never to make it let it go. We're never, like in the somatic parts work that I do with clients, I'm not, like, I never want a client to try and get rid of a part. And we have to make sure that part of us feels loved, cared for, cherished, supported, like a best friend or like a little kid. Like I become the new parent for these parts of me that maybe didn't get core needs met as a child.
Because it is part of us, even if we don't like that part. It is a part of us. And so it's like, it goes back to when you were talking about your back and your neck pain earlier, how you were trying to get rid of it. That's never the way. That's never the answer.
Yeah.
Never.
And so
I want to get rid of it,
Yeah. And let's be real here. Back then in those dark days for me, I was disgusted with myself. I did not like very much of who I was in those moments because I didn't like how I felt. And I felt so much shame and guilt for being stuck there and not knowing how to get out that I really turned against myself. So the journey of healing for me is all about turning towards ourself and all of these parts of us that really have core needs that still need met. And instead of relying on other humans to meet those needs, we begin to meet those needs, those emotional needs.
Yeah. It's so empowering, right?
Yeah. Then the body softens and eases on its own We don't have to try and get rid of whatever's there. It just softens and it lets go through a gentle
The wisdom
approach.
of the body.
Mhm.
It wants to do that. Can you take us through, maybe there's a scenario or an example that you can think of where you worked with somebody that had a digestive disorder, any kind, it could be IBS, it could be IBD. Like, what was that journey like for them? What are some, you mentioned several different modalities. What kinds of things are you doing with someone who's coming to you with where digestive challenges are their main symptom?
So can I be honest? Every
Of course.
diagnosis, every diagnosis that somebody comes to me with, I don't treat it any differently.
Okay. It doesn't matter what they're coming with. So
No.
it could be anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, it's
Yeah.
any chronic symptoms that are repeatedly showing up in the body. It's showing a lack of safety inside of the body. It's showing there's voids inside of us. There's emotions suppressed inside of us that need to be seen and heard and validated and really held with so much love and compassion. And what happens in the journey of doing that, the body symptoms start easing
Yeah,
because,
so same approach. It does it
yeah,
whatever it is, it's the same approach. And there's so many different modalities. And I love that you talk about the different ones because I have seen some somatic coaches and therapists that maybe specialize in one thing and that's what they do. But it sounds to me like you're picking from a wide range of, you have experience with a wide range of modalities. So
mhm.
how do you then go about figuring out which one are you going to use in which moment? Is it client centered or is it more through the presentation and your experience? Or are you just using them all with everybody?
Every session I ever do looks completely different.
Okay.
I would say I'm an intuitive healer. And so I really go to, I, I've always been ultra sensitive to the extreme. I've always carried emotion in a big way. And I think that part of that was I was dysregulated even in my mom's womb. I really believe I came into the world with a dysregulated nervous system because my mom was dysregulated.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. Is that a
Mhm.
generational trauma thing or
She was
yeah.
she
So,
was
yeah.
going through separation and divorce. I was not planned. It was a
Yeah.
very stressful time and season of life for her.
And
And
that energy you took on.
yeah,
That just make complete sense. Right.
well, and here's the thing, we talk about the body keeping the score. On a cellular level, our body is holding a lot of information. And we don't realize to the extent that that's true. But when you look at the markers of generational trauma, you can see that, it takes one cycle breaker though to break the cycle, like one person to start actually doing this emotional healing work to change the generational cycles so that your DNA, like the cells they shift, they change within us.
Right. Yeah.
They really literally do. And that's what's passed on. So yeah,
That's what I think is really interesting about any kind of work like this is that we aren't the product of everything that's happened generationally. We actually have the power
we
to
do.
change at the cellular level.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I find that really interesting. It just takes one person to say, I'm going to break the cycle
Mhm.
for the next generation, for me and for the next generation.
Yeah, exactly. Because as moms, you work with a lot of moms, I work with a lot
Yeah.
of moms. You know, we can get so dysregulated by our kids when they're dysregulated, right? If we don't have the skills and the capacity to come back home to a place of peace and safety and ease and connection with ourselves, if we don't know how to do that, like if somebody's sitting here listening to this and they're like, I don't even know what that means, it means you need this work. Like
Right.
it does.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
means that if you don't know how to, there's skills to learn. I like to keep it in that language because I think women feel a lot of shame for not knowing how to respond to their kids or respond to their own dysregulation when we're feeling something in a big way and we don't know what to do with it. I feel like there's a lot of shame and guilt that keeps us stuck in the mud.
Yes. That's what I wanted to talk to you about next, actually, is because especially with the moms that I work with,
Mm-hmm.
shame, self-criticism,
Yep,
it all goes along with having these chronic digestive
it
disorders.
does.
It
Yeah,
goes along with motherhood, whether you have that. And
yeah.
so, how do you work with your clients to help them develop the self-compassion, the self-acceptance that they need? What, like, if you could give me one or two key takeaways that somebody who maybe they don't have access to this or they've never tried it before, what's something that would be helpful for them to just start to bring the acceptance around, bring the self-compassion around?
So one of my really basic processes that I try to get women to start doing immediately on their own outside of my session times is to have an awareness of the activation that's in their body. On a scale of 1 to 10, how activated am I? 10 would be
Okay.
I'm extremely anxious. I'm extremely alarmed. I'm extremely overwhelmed, stressed, whatever words you want to put to it. I'm feeling something in an extreme way. But like gauging 1 to 10, where's my activation right now? Dropping into the body and seeing, okay, is my body, am I feeling panicked? Am I feeling like I'm tense? Like, just noticing that and then putting a name to the emotions. What am I feeling? Right? Once we label it and name it, and it's just like, it's not who I am. I am not depressed, but I may feel depressed, or I may
Mhm.
feel anxious, or I may feel stomach issues happening right now. But this is where I say, like, I throw the diagnosis stuff kind of out. For me, it's like I'm not operating from a medical standpoint, but I'm like, okay, those things, we're not defined by them anymore. A doctor might have put that label on you and you may have these symptoms, but we're not defined by them. So let's just call out whatever's authentically happening in our body in this moment. I'm feeling really anxious. I'm feeling really scared. Whatever the words are, putting words to it. And then this is where it's more of a meditative practice, because I think we can get so caught up in our headspace that when our eyes are open, I feel like we're very distracted people. So for me, it looks like teaching my clients to close their eyes, to connect with their body in some way, whether that's a hand on their heart, two hands, a hand on the heart and the stomach, and just connecting with, okay, what's here? What am I feeling? What am I experiencing right in this moment? This is all that matters, this moment. Where am I at?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we learn through practice how to compassionately respond to that. If somebody else was feeling that, what would you say to them, right? It's like, but I go from the somatic parts work perspective. So how I function is very specific to, okay, like, how long has this energy been stuck here? How long has this emotion been here? When do you remember first feeling that way? Have you felt that way most of your life? Almost always there's an emotional chain link from what's experienced in the present moment to something of the past.
And what you're doing is by not coming at it through diagnoses and
Mhm.
labels, I think that removes this ownership piece that we have. Like,
Yes.
I am celiac disease.
Yep.
I am
Or
Crohn's
I
disease.
have.
Even I have,
I
right?
have.
Anxiety, whatever. When you say those things to yourself, there's such an ownership of it that's where I think that the shame and the self-criticism comes in.
Yep.
But I like how you're talking about it. They just are, and they
We're
just are
neutral.
part of you.
Yeah.
And
We are neutral
I'm
observers.
feeling these things or
Yeah.
thinking these things, but
Yeah.
without label or judgment. I'm going to add that in because I'm
Yes.
sure it's true, right?
Yeah.
And just inherent in that small shift, I really feel like that takes the shame and the self criticism part, the self-ownership of it away.
It does. And you know what? The next level of it is, because yes, you're exactly right. I am all about letting, like, let's just turn off the shame alarm, right? Like, let's just stop shaming ourselves, because I shamed myself to the point where I didn't want to live anymore. Like, I'm just going to be honest. I created a lot more suffering for myself. And that is something that I've had to own. I had to face up to the reality of, okay, I was capable of doing that. I'm capable of doing the opposite. And I want to be doing the opposite. And so what I love about parts work, though, is that we're connecting with these younger versions of us. And it's so much easier to have compassion when I look at, and I have right here in my office, like, a picture of me when I was a little girl, like, and I look at it regularly.
Oh, wow.
And
Oh,
I'm,
you know what? People listening, that's something you could do right now.
yeah.
You could go to your parents, you could go through your stack of photos, you could
Mhm.
find that picture of your younger self
Yeah.
and put it somewhere. Like, that's something that people could do right now,
Yeah.
right today. Something
And,
that start
talk.
connecting with that,
Yeah.
start connecting with that person you used to be. That
Talk to
flow
that little
person, like you
girl.
say. Right.
Right. For
And
me,
talk to them. Right.
yeah. For me, she holds all the alarm. Every bit of fear that was held in my stomach, she was holding that. So when I actually teach my clients to connect with her, and we are closed eyes because it's just easier to see. We
To
see
go
her.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
see her. And it's like, she was worthy of more than what she experienced in those moments. She was worthy of having somebody hold her and rock her. So let's do that. Let's just stop and let's just hold and we rock her. And I take them through guided visualizations. Visualization is one of the number one ways that I help my clients rewire their brain and their body, is through guided reconciliation with these younger parts.
Okay.
I mean, the adult version, I just guided somebody recently who was stuck on this. She didn't really even realize it until we went to the body, and I asked her to connect how old was this version of her? What was this part? How long has her body been holding it? And she connected, and I said, where did you see her? And she saw her in an abandoned house. Took her back to a trauma and a visual she couldn't get rid of. And what we did was we actually connected with her, and the adult version of her came into the scene, gave this beautiful little girl everything she needed, and removed her from the house
Oh, wow.
and took her to a place where she wanted to go. We actually communicate with these younger parts. And when you do it, it's awkward at first to do it on your own. I always recommend
Yeah.
doing it with somebody who's guided, like is trained and certified in that, because it's awkward and uncomfortable. And we don't really know how to start doing that. But once you learn it, it's so simple and beautiful and rich. And I can offer this little girl, this little Jill, more compassion than I can the adult version of me. It's so much simpler to offer
Right.
it to her first.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like from what you're saying that you feel like it's best to find a trained practitioner first. It's like, don't try this at home. Like, try to find, because, you might open a window to your soul or a door that you really just would have trouble on your own closing. It might be too much. So it sounds
Mhm.
like what you're saying is really try to find somebody who's trained in this and work with them. And then probably in your sessions, you're giving them things to do at home once they have the knowledge, the language, the experience in session. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, except for, I would say, you know, I know how to pull those out and lead my clients to those really heavier places. And I do think you're right. Sometimes, I think the key is sometimes. Um, Sometimes it could be too much, but more often than not, if something comes up when you're not really skilled to doing, like, to go that deep with yourself, it's something that's come up multiple times before for you. I think the key to all of it with parts work is just trying to respond with love and care and compassion. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. This is where
Okay.
the black and white trauma thinking happens of like, so for me, I don't want people to feel like they couldn't ever do it on their own unless they were guided. I think a guide can take it much deeper and can really dig into those places and help you go to those really, really deep places. But I think even on I hesitate to say superficial level, but on a more simpler, that's the better word, a simpler level, if we're like connecting with our body, the sensations, the emotions, expressing whatever's really here, and then just simply responding to them with compassion and kindness, or just saying, oh, yeah, I've felt that way since I was a kid. Like, even if we just have that simple of an understanding, it's like, okay, well, like, just talk to that part, ask that part questions. Well, what do you need from me today? That's as simple as
Mhm.
it. If we can keep it even as simple as that, what do you need? Whatever part comes up, if it's an angry part, if it's an anxious part, if it's a scared part, if it's a sad part, just asking that part of you, like, what do you need from me right now to feel safe, to feel supported, to feel cared for, to feel loved? If we can go back to those basic principles like we are as moms to our own kids, of like what we're trying to give to them, but actually give it to ourselves and say, and just ask this childlike part of us, what do you need, sweet girl? What
Yeah.
do you need?
Yeah.
How can I help you? If we are truly embodied in that moment of like closing our eyes and connecting with ourselves and that part of us, that part will let us know. All I need
I
you
love it.
I just need you to affirm me. I just need to know that you're not going to leave me. Just need
Yeah.
to I just need you to listen. I just need patience. Like, a lot of times it's very simple, actually.
Yeah. It sounds like really then anybody could do this by just finding a quiet place,
Hmm.
getting quiet in your mind,
Yeah.
closing your eyes, maybe putting your hand on your heart to connect to that home base, and just asking your body, like, what do I need right now?
Yeah.
Having that picture would be like the bonus to all of this,
Yeah.
but they could start. That would be a beautiful starting place,
Hmm.
because even in the moment of doing that, you are calming the nervous system just by asking the
Yes.
question. You're calming the nervous
Just
system,
by pausing
which
and breathing. Let's stop there. Just by
right.
pausing and breathing, we are
Yeah.
calming the nervous system already,
Yeah.
right?
So that's something you could really do anywhere. Even when you're
Yeah.
a busy mom, you're in
Yeah.
the carpool line, you're washing dishes, you're in the shower, you're nursing. You can, I love that you could do that anywhere that you are in your busy life. You could do it even at that, what I think you said, simple level, even at
Yeah.
that simple level.
Yeah.
So you could even do it there.
And the more we do that on micro levels repeatedly, the more we start building a new relationship with ourselves. One where we're not ignoring, bypassing, suppressing emotion, where we're actually being present with ourselves. What am I even feeling? A lot of
Yeah.
us moms, we just meet all the needs around us, and we don't even stop and ask, where am I at? How am I even feeling? Do
No,
I have
no,
any
we
needs?
don't at all. Yes. We don't have needs where we don't have needs, right? It's just always on the back burner. I'll get to that later. It's not that we don't know that we need to. It's I will get to it later. I'll get to it later, because something
And
is always more important.
I will be honest, both times when my nervous system was struggling the most and I had the most chronic symptoms, it was when I was focused, hyper focused on meeting other people's needs. And
I
I
hear that all
really
the
was
time.
ignoring mine.
Yep. 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 Yes. If you're listening to this and feeling that way, and you have been ignoring it, ignoring it, ignoring it, this is your wake up call. This is the time. Now is the time. And just start really simple. You can
And
just
let's
start really, really simple.
and let's add in the fact that this actually is good for the kids and your
Oh,
marriages
I'm so glad you said that,
and
Jill.
every relationship. This is my motivating force when I'm working with a woman. I'm like, when you live from a regulated state within your nervous system, when you know how to emotionally regulate when you feel big emotions and come back down to a state of ease, if you can guide yourself through the wave of being a human, then you can help guide your little ones through their own waves, you feel more resourced and equipped with skills and tools and resources to help yourself. Well, guess what? Once you know that, you get to teach that to your kids. Break the
Mm-hmm.
cycles. Then your grandkids could benefit from that. It's like this beautiful gift of life. It's a life transformational gift.
Yeah. And sometimes we have to sell it that way because moms don't want to take the time for them. But look, if you do this for yourself, it is going to benefit your kids. And
Yeah.
so often when I talk about food or a lifestyle or anything that I talk about with my clients, mind, body, I always have to frame it that way. This is actually going to benefit your kids. When you take the time to do this for you, it will benefit your kids. And when it's framed that way, then there's nothing a mom isn't going to do for her
Right.
kids. So I love that you mentioned that, because sometimes we need that extra motivation to say, it's not just going to benefit me. It's going to benefit my spouse, my father, my mother, my brothers, sisters. It's like, it's going to benefit everybody because you can pass it on.
Every single relationship.
Yeah.
Because
go ahead.
I was going to say, because we are modeling it. We're showing through modeling by doing for ourselves, and then we're energetic beings. Our energy is felt. So we have this opportunity to help our kids either co-regulate with us or co-dysregulate with us.
Oh, amen. Yes, exactly. So whether we know it or not, when we don't deal with this, we're passing it on.
Yes.
We're passing it on. Whether it's in utero or by action, we're passing it on. So we really owe it to not just ourselves, but to our kids.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. To just keep this positivity going. Hey there, it's Karen popping into the episode. I want to thank you so much for tuning into the Cheeky Podcast for moms with IBD today. You know, the great information that we're dishing out on this pod is exactly the same type of conversations I get to have with my clients every day. And if you're ready to take your IBD healing journey to the next level and move into being the mom you always dreamed you'd be, then hop on over to KarenHaley.com/consult and book your free IBD consultation with me today. Remember, my mom had to be a little bit different and spell my name with a Y. So that's KaryNHaley.com/consult. Now, on our call, we will dive into what you're struggling with most right now and make a plan for how we can work together to help you achieve your big, bold, beautiful, life-transforming goals. No more sitting on the sidelines, waiting for that miracle cure to magically happen. You've got what it takes to do this, mama. You just need a little nudge in the right direction. And I've got your back. KarenHaley.com/consult. And now back to the show. You know, so often on the podcast, we talk about really deep, difficult, complicated topics that when I like to wrap up an episode, I like to do a quick lightning round, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Because it just kind of brings a little bit of levity, a little bit of joy to the end of it, and it will help people get to know you a little bit better too. And I promise it's not a big quiz. It's just simple questions, but it'll be fun. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, so 10 questions. Okay, what is the supplement that you can't live without?
Probiotic.
Oh, yes. I love that one.
I know you like
I love that one.
But I do believe that it's helped
transform
my inflammation issues and my ability to even have little cheat moments of gluten and dairy and yeah.
Yeah. Probiotic, huge. Yep. That microbiome, we have to keep that healthy.
Yep.
Okay. So many people that I talk with have complicated issues and they're in doctor's offices and things like that. And so there's no better advocator than people who have chronic illnesses. So when you go to the doctor's office, what's the one thing that you do to make sure that you're advocating for yourself?
I'm very aware of my body. I'm very aware of the signals of my body, the sensations. If I don't feel at ease, I just recently had this actually, and I switched doctors. I did not feel at ease in my body.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's just that intuition that so often I think women have, but they don't listen to.
Mhm.
So yes, when we're uncomfortable in a situation, we have to listen to that, just
Yep.
that inner voice. Yes, I
Yeah.
love that. What is your favorite type of mind body exercise? Something that anybody could even just do at home.
My very favorite is probably EFT tapping, and that is something
Mhm.
that anybody can learn. Google it.
I
There's
was going to
some
say, what's your favorite resource? Just Google it.
yeah,
Yeah.
EFT tapping is my very favorite
Okay. Yep. Yep. And that's
because
something you can do at home.
it's a power punch of physiological tapping on the body while also processing cognitively. And it gives me permission to just state wherever I'm at. What am I feeling? All the raw expressions that are within me. It gives me permission to just let it out.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
And what's one thing that you do on a, it might be the same thing, but what's one thing you do on a regular basis to connect with yourself? Like a self care hack that you do on a regular basis?
um, I would say that, but also in the mornings before I even get out of bed, I use that precious subconscious reprogramming time when my brain is in more of a theta state. And I actually try to envision how I want to show up for the day, how I want to feel, and I start to see it in my mind. And then I talk to myself and I encourage myself in the parts of me that are showing up that kind of feel maybe hesitant or scared or, something going into the day. I genuinely will just speak life over myself as I'm,
There's that
yeah,
visualization that you mentioned
yeah,
earlier,
yeah.
that visualizing. I love that you do it in the morning because that's the time to do that, right? To really just set you up to have
I
a
I
positive
do it
day.
before I touch my phone. I do it before I get out of bed, actually, because that's when my brain is still in that state where the cognitive processing hasn't gone,
Yeah,
whoa.
right. All cylinders are not firing like
Yes.
this yet. Yeah. Okay, so what is one thing that you think most everybody gets wrong about somatic coaching?
Ooh. I just think that people are so caught up in their head and overthinking things that feel like some people think that just by doing, say, yoga practices or the somatics, even though those somatic type practices and movements are a part of what I'm doing too, is that doing that is not like enough. You have to have the emotional connection piece, the self connection piece with yourself in doing any kind of movement practices in a really mindful way in order for them to be healing and restorative longer term.
Gotcha. Okay, good to know. And when somebody says to you, do you have a good book recommendation? What is that one book that you go back to time and time again, that book that you just cannot get out of your head? And it could be self help in nature or it could be totally fluffy. What book?
Oh, I'm gonna grab it because I want to make sure I say it
Okay,
right.
cool.
It's right here. It is. It's a workbook that I started off
Oh,
with.
okay.
It's called the Mindful Self Compassion Workbook, and it's by Kristen Neff and
Okay.
Christopher Germer.
We
And
will put that in the show notes. Tell me about it.
yeah,
What's in it?
um, the subtitle says it all: a proven way to accept yourself, build inner strength, and thrive. And uh, for me, it was kind of just a good, I think it's so meaningful to me because it was a hands-on tool when I didn't know how to connect to myself to start this journey of offering myself kindness and compassion
Hmm.
and being
Hmm.
really empathetic and gentle towards myself. And it gives hands-on practices and guides you through. And
I
so,
love a good workbook because if you say,
mhm,
I want to do this, but I don't know how to start, get a workbook. That's the place to start because it will give you the prompts. You don't have
yeah,
to figure out what to do on your own. So I
yeah,
love that. Okay, we'll put that in the show notes. Do you have a favorite travel destination?
Destin, Florida.
Okay, is it just because you love Destin or do you have family there?
Just because it's the closest thing that we can drive to that's not overwhelming.
Yeah,
And the water there is
it's
like
so
the
beautiful.
Caribbean and the
Yeah,
sand is
yeah,
white. It's just this
yeah.
place that honestly, I'm more adventurous and I like to go lots of different places, but it's something I've begun to appreciate because my husband loves it there so much. And after we went there once, he wanted to go back again. And then he always wants to go there. That's like, and he's like, why would I want to go anywhere else when I feel so at peace when I'm here? And
You
so
can't argue with that.
I know, right? And so for me, it's interesting because there's this part of me that I'm like, well, why don't we try somewhere new? And then I'm like, but I agree. Like my
Yeah.
soul feels at rest there. And I think probably because his does too. So when the two of us go together, it's a space of rest for us on a
Yeah.
soul
Yeah.
level.
I love that your favorite travel destination is all about relaxing and feeling wonderful at a soul level.
And it's hilarious
Yeah.
though, because we're adventurers too. We like to go to Colorado and hike
Mm-hmm.
mountains and stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
there's just something special about that place.
Yeah, it sounds like you'll probably always go back there, no matter where life
Yes.
takes you. You'll go back there.
And
Coffee,
illegally, we want our ashes thrown there.
really?
We love it that much.
Yeah, wow. You know what? You are not the first person to say that, I bet, because it's so beautiful. I've been there. I have a good friend who lives there, and it's so beautiful there. I bet you other people have that same wish.
Yeah.
Yeah, put their ashes there. Okay, coffee, tea, and how do you take it? Coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
So I alternate.
Okay,
And so not always in a systematic way, but green tea with honey,
love it.
hot or cold.
Uh-huh.
And then coffee, I honestly like half calf coffee because
Mhm.
I'm trying to just be really careful of the dysregulation that caffeine causes for my body.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And I
makes
usually do
sense.
have creamer. I can't do coffee black.
Yeah, yeah, gotcha. Okay, what's your favorite way to? You talked about what you like to do in the morning. So, what do you like to do at night? What's your favorite way to unwind after a long day?
I do legs up the wall. So I literally lay on my back
Uh
with
huh.
my legs up the
Uh huh.
wall.
Uh huh.
And I like to pair it with either some meditative music, a sound bath, or a meditation. And that's my favorite.
I love that you take time for these things. You're giving by just talking about the things that you do, your morning routine, your evening routine, you're giving permission to our listeners to say, yes, I can do that too. Someone else is taking the time for it.
Mhm.
I can do that too.
And
I
it
love that
can
you just
be,
unapologetically say,
yeah,
this is what I do. I love it.
and it can be 3 minutes, ladies. It doesn't have to be a lot. It can be
Right.
micro moments of just allowing ourselves to go, ah,
Yes. And that's the starting place. And then try and get longer and longer, but that would be your starting place. I love it.
yeah,
Okay. Last question. So the name of this podcast is the Cheeky Podcast. And so to me, that means being a little bit sassy, a little bit quirky, and a lot badass.
I
So
love
how are
it.
you cheeky in your life?
Oh goodness. Honestly, I feel like even starting this coaching business for me is incredibly cheeky. For me, it's badass in the sense that for a girl who's felt like she had to hide all of her life and stay quiet and stay small, every time I show up and use my voice, even in this platform of like having a podcast with you, I am freaking doing it.
Yes.
I
Like I
am.
wouldn't see that in you at all. Like I don't know you, but you just showing up, like you're just, like I'm owning it. This is me. I love it.
But I've had to come into that place. This is my part
Yeah.
of my transformation healing
Yeah.
journey is that, you know, even from the outside, though, people might have seen the lively energy that piece was still part of me. However, there
Right.
was always a part of me that was dying inside secretly and always fighting like to be seen and to share. I mean, really sharing about healing work is not, it's not easy. It is
Yeah.
I feel like I have to go to very vulnerable places oftentimes to just even share the work that I'm doing on social media or with people. Um, to use my voice in that way is probably the most vulnerable thing I've ever done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Telling bits and pieces of my story, I think it's badass that I do it because
I
I've
really
cried
commend you
so
for
many
it.
tears in the journey of even giving myself permission to follow this pursuit of knowing that what I discovered for my own healing journey is what I'm called to share with the world. And even if that means being misunderstood by my own family members.
Hmm. Sucky, but often true, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, but you're helping so many people and you've helped so many people today by joining us on the podcast. I want to thank you for that. So if
Mm.
people want to find out more about you, if they're interested in delving into your world, tell us, Jill, how can we connect with you?
Yeah. So follow me on Dancing in the Mess on Instagram. That's like my
That's the
platform
best
is
name.
my platform is all it's Dancing in the Mess. Everything I do is about dancing in the mess, trying to find and seek joy and light in the messiness of our humanity. We're all humans and we're all experiencing the mess of being human. So there's that, or my website, dancinginthemess.com.
Oh, wonderful. Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jill. It was such an honor to get to know you.
Oh, you too. Thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate it.